Hello, all the learners. Greetings to all. Hope you all are keeping well in this time. Today, I will teach you the chapter Deep Water, written by William Douglas. Now, this story is written by William Douglas and it is in your Flamingo book. Flamingo textbook it is. You have in your question paper, class 12 learners. I just want to remind you that in the class 12 question paper, what you have in the sections. First section, it is you have the reading, which is of 20 marks. Then you have the writing skill, that is of what is it 30 marks. And then you have the literature section, which has two books in your English core, that is the Flamingo and the Vistas, from where you get 30 marks. So this is the sitting, and this chapter which I am going to teach you is known as, it is the Deep Water, and it is written by William Douglas, and it is from your Flamingo book. Now learners, just I want to brief you a little that in this, here in this platform, the Unacademy platform, if you are putting your subscription, then you can avail the plus courses. The plus courses are live classes in which you have a lot of interaction. The teacher, the students, it's a kind of live class. I give you live lectures on each and every section of your English paper, and there we have a lot of questions, polling, different doubt clearing. There, after every 3 chapter, there is the doubt clearing, and then you have to answer the quiz, in which you get MCQs. Weekly quizzes are there, mega quizzes are there, and those are fun. So you get grading also in that. So it is a very, very live affair in the plus classes. And in this Unacademy, you know that this is becoming the best platform, educational platform for students. It is a school away from your real school. The whole setup is like a school. So you can subscribe to it and avail the best classes, best explanations by the top educators of India. So if you want to subscribe, you can give my referral code and get an additional discount. So my referral code is NUPUR 10, and then when you refer to this, you are getting an additional discount. So here, learners, watch this video very carefully, learn what is in the chapter, everything I will be explaining in this chapter, and then you please like the video, share the video with your friends, and of course, subscribe it. And then don't forget to press the bell button. If you are pressing the bell button, of course, you will get all the notifications of whichever class I'm going to update. So let's start. Learners, let's start the class. So we are going to do Deep Water by William Douglas from your book Flamingo. So here you see the chapter as it is said, Deep Water. The chapter's name is Deep Water. Now this essay is written by William Douglas. Let's get a little acquainted with the author. Now William Douglas, 1898 to 1980. He lived. His lifespan is 1898 to 1980. He was born in Maine, Minnesota. After graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in English and Economics, he spent 2 years teaching in the high school in Yakima. However, he got tired of this, and what did he do? And decided to pursue a legal career. He met Franklin D. He met Franklin D. Roosevelt at Yale the and became an advisor and friend to the president. Now, Douglas was a leading advocate of individual rights. He retired in 1975 with a term lasting 36 years and remains the longest service justice in the history of the court. The following excerpt, that is the following essay, um, the deep, deep water. This excerpt is taken from the essay or the write-up of William Douglas of Men and Mountains by William O. Douglas. It reveals how, as a young boy, now this excerpt is what? The extract taken from the story. So, this excerpt, you see, so this excerpt, what is it? It is, uh, it reveals how, as a young boy, okay, how, as a young boy, William Douglas nearly drowned in a swimming pool. So, in this essay, what he talks about, you see, he talks about his fear of water and thereafter how he overcomes it. Notice how the autobiographical part of the selection is used to support his discussion of fear. So, this is what is in the story. So, in this story, learners, just I want to tell you that this story is actually it is an autobiographical piece, and in this autobiographical piece, he narrates, he relates his own real life experience, and in this, what does he do? He discusses with the theme of the fear of water, how the fear of water had gripped the author in a very tender age. From a very tender age, he was gripped with the fear of water. And ultimately, what happens? This childhood fear is persists in his life. And later on, when he understands that he was unable to enjoy many kinds of water sports, then it came to his mind that he must overcome that fear of water. So, what did he do? He took up to learning swimming, and he started learning swimming, and with a lot of practice, ultimately he could overcome his fear of water. So here I have mentioned that what is the theme of the story. First one is author's fear of water and how he finally overcame it. Second is he discusses that how childhood fear must not be treated lightly. You know, if a child gets some kind of fear, that can remain all his life. So the author's message here is that the childhood fear must not be treated lightly, and if they are not tackled, then what happens? They take deep inroad into one's psychology. So what do? They take a deep inroad, deep impact on the psychology of a person. Now, what is the fear actually? Not death. Death is not the fear. He ultimately, in the end of the chapter, he tells us that it is not death that one fears. Death is what? Death is very peaceful. But the fear of death scares everyone. Scares means frightens everyone. And we must fight, therefore, the fear. Otherwise, what will happen? It will empower us. All right. So if we don't overcome this fear, then it will overpower us. And ultimately, what happens? People become sick of the fear. So, learners, let's start the chapter. It's a very interesting chapter, which you will do here, which I will be explaining. Now, now the deep water is the chapter 3 of your Flamingo book. Now, you see, here I have given you the chapter. Many of you, if you don't have the book, you can go through these lines of the chapter. It had happened when I was 10 or 11 years old. I had decided to learn to swim. There was a pool at the YMCA in Yakima that offered exactly the opportunity. So the author says that when he was 10 or 11 years old, he wished to he decided to learn to swim. And so there was a pool also at the YMCA. What is the full form of YMCA, learners? That is Young Men's Christian Association. This association is all over the world. In India also we have YMCA clubs. So the author thought that he will learn to swim in the YMCA swimming pool. The Yakima River was treacherous. So the Yakima River, Yakima is a place in Washington. So the Yakima River was how was it? It was torturous, means it was very dangerous. And mother continually warned against it and kept fresh in my mind the details of each drowning, the details of each drowning in the river. So I have given you some meanings also here, children, students, that YMCA, Yakima is a place, treacherous means dangerous. So mother, what did she do? She continually warned against the and kept fresh in the mind of the author about the everyday drowning in the Yakima River. So the author's mind in that very tender age, this fear of water was implanted in his mind. But the YMCA pool was safe. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end, while it was 9 feet at the other. So the drop was gradual. So the YMCA swimming pool was safe enough. In the shallow end, it was 2-3 deep water, and at the other deeper end, it was 9 feet deep. I got a pair of water wings and went to the pool. That is water wings. He was to learn to swim, no? So at the age of 10 or 11, he took the water wings. Water wings are what? Those inflated floats which are fixed on the arms to learn swimming or to maintain the buoyancy in the water. So I hated to walk naked into and show my skinny legs. So what happened? He hated, he did not like to walk in the water with his skinny legs. He was too thin. But I subdued my pride and did it. Then he walked into the swimming pool. Now, from the beginning, however, I had an aversion. Now, it is written aversion. From the beginning, however, what he had an aversion means he had a dislike to the water. So, what had he developed, learners? What had he developed? He had developed the hydrophobia, that is, fear of water. So, from the beginning only, he had an aversion to the water, means dislike of the water. When I was in it, when he used to get into the water, he used to not like the water. This started when I was 3 or 4 years when I was old, and father took me to the beach in California. Now, this aversion had started in his life when he was only 3 or 4 years old, when he had gone with his father to the California beach. And in that California beach, there was a huge wave coming. So what happened? He had hung on to him. That is, I had hung on him, yet the waves knocked me down. So what was the experience? The waves had knocked him down in the water, and the waves swept him. That is, he was almost buried in the water. Now he uses this word, I was buried in the water. Buried, this buried word is what? It is used in a very negative sense. When a person dies, the body is buried. So this he too was had a very bad, very terrorizing impression of the water in his childhood. So he had this experience. So my breath was gone at that time. That was when he was 3 to 4 years old, when he had this first experience. After that, he also was always reminded by his mother, who had implanted this kind of fear in his mind, that in the Yakima River, every now and then there was people used to drown. So in this, the whole way, what his all the childhood fear had engripped him, and therefore he was so gripped with fear that this remained in his mind. So my breath was gone. That is the in the that California beach, and I was frightened. Father laughed, but there was terror in my heart at the overpowering force of the water waves. So, but the father laughed. He took it lightly, but the the author, he had that overpowering waves gave him a lot of fear or terror in his heart. So here it comes. The, the word meanings here are drop, that is slope from the shallow area, water wings, a pair of inflated waterproof bags, and skinny, thin, subdued means to overcome pride, the self-respect. Now you see the chapter continuing. So my introduction to the YMCA swimming pool revived unpleasant memories. So when he went to learn swimming in the YMCA pool, again those childhood fears were revived. Revived means it was again, he again got back those childhood fears. But in a little while, I gathered confidence and I paddled with my new water wings. So, but after some time, what happened? But after a little while, he gathered his confidence, he gathered his courage, and then he went into the swimming pool and with his new water wings. And what happened? That he was watching the other boys and trying to learn by aping them. So, what he was doing, he was watching the other boys and he was trying to learn swimming by aping them. Aping them means by copying those other boys in the YMCA. I did these 2 or 3 times on different days and was just beginning to feel at ease. So for 2 3 days, what happened? He was hello Suryavans, Saurav Singh. I started at 5 o'clock. Hello, good evening. Okay. So what happened? Learners, just follow. So what happened that he started aping them, and after few days he started having ease. Means he got some confidence in the swimming pool of the YMCA. When the misadventure happened. So there then followed a misadventure which actually gave him the fright of water, the terror of water, the great fear of water. Now, what had happened? I went to the pool when no one else was there. The place was quiet. So he went to the YMCA pool on that particular day when the misadventure happened. He went to the pool when no one else was there and the swimming pool was very quiet. The water was still and the tilted bottom was as white and clean as a bathtub. So the tilted water in the swimming pool, it was a it was as white and clean as a bathtub. I was timid about going in alone, so I sat on the side of the pool to wait for others. So what did he? He was timid, means he was afraid of going into the water, and therefore he sat on the side of the pool to wait for the others. I had not been there long when in came a big bruiser of a boy. So on that particular day, what happened? He was sitting there alone, and he was not much for a long time when a big bruiser means big aggressive boy came there, who was probably 18 years old. So he was probably 18 years old, and he had thick hair on his chest. He was a beautiful physical specimen with legs and arms that showed rippling muscles. So there was the he that boy was had a rippling muscles, means he had very good muscles on his body, and he was very well built. And he yelled, "Hi, Skinny, how would you like to be ducked?" So they asked that, hi, Skinny, how would you like to be ducked? And at this, the boy, he asked, how would you like to be ducked? Ducked means what? Pushed or plunged into the water. He was a strong boy, and the author was only 10 to 11 years old, and he was actually in the water alone there. So after this, learners, you can see the word meaning. So with that, what did he do? He said like that, and then he picked me up and tossed me into the deep end. I landed in a sitting position, swallowed water, and went at once to the bottom. So what did he do? He just tossed him into the water. And what happened to the author? He just he tossed him into the deep water, and he landed in the water in a sitting position. And immediately when he was thrown in the water, he swallowed water at once, and he was at the bottom of the swimming pool. When you don't know to swim, when you don't know to swim, then what happens? Then you start swallowing water. So I was frightened, but not yet frightened out of my wits. On the way down, I planned when my feet now when he was in on the bottom of the swimming pool, he had some plan. What was his plan? On the way down, I planned when my feet hit the bottom, I would make a big jump. So he thought that when he will totally drown in the swimming pool and hit the bottom, then he will do? He will make a big jump and come on the come to the surface. And when he will come to the surface, he will lie flat on it and paddle to the edge of the pool. So he will paddle to the edge of the pool, and then you see, and paddle to the edge, and that way he will lie flat on the surface, and then he will paddle to the edge of the pool and get himself saved in from the water. It seemed a long way down, but what he was tossed in the deep water, and it seemed that he was very deep in the water, and those 9 feet appeared to him as if it was 90 feet. And before I touched bottom, my lungs were ready to burst. So when he was totally down in the swimming pool, his lungs appeared to burst. Why? He had drank so much water that his lungs were filled with water, and it was so his lungs seemed to were ready to burst. But when my feet hit bottom, I summoned all my strength. So again, the author, he tried to survive. So when his feet touched the bottom, what? I summoned all my strength. That is, he gathered all his strength and made what I thought was great spring. So what did he do? He summoned all his strength and made what I thought, that is, he pushed himself with all his strength, and he thought that he would come on the water like a cork. But what happened? Instead, he came up slowly. Instead of popping up like a cork, he came up slowly, and again he immersed in the water and saw nothing but water. That is, he could see nothing all through but water. And that had a dirty yellow tinge to it. So, what kind of water was there in the deep water? That had a dirty yellow colored paint. Paint means color. So he imagined he would bob. Now, here you see, I grew panicky. I reached up as if to grab a rope in my and my hands clutched in only at water. So he was so nervous. He thought that he would jump up and grip some kind of a rope. But what he could only clutch water. All round him, all the sides in him, he could only get the water. I was suffocating. So he was actually drowning. His lungs were full of water. He was suffocating because he could not breathe. I tried to yell, that is, yell means shout, but no sound came out. Then my eyes and nose came out of the water, but not my mouth. That is, his relentless trial, his relentless effort in the water could not put him on the surface of the water. He was only deep inside the water because he did not know how to swim and he was in the deeper end of the swimming pool. I flailed at the surface of the water, swallowed and choked. Flail means to wave hands in the water. And what did he do? He swallowed more and more water and he only choked. I tried to bring my legs up, but they hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. Paralyzed and rigid, and a great force was pulling me under. But what was happening? He was totally paralyzed, and rigid means stiff, and a great force of the water was pulling him down. But and what he screamed, but only what he could hear, who could, only the water could hear him. His screams could not come out of the water. Only the water heard me. And then here you see, I had started on the long journey back to the bottom of the pool. So he made all his efforts to come up the water, but what was the result? He was coming down, down, and down to the bottom of the pool. I struck at the water as I went down. So what did he do? He struck at the water. That is, he moved fast in the water. He hit the water, but expending my strength as one in a nightmare fights an irresistible force. So he was striking the water, but and he was expending, that is, he was using all his energy, just as in a nightmare a person does with fighting with an irresistible force. I had lost all my breath. So, in that struggle, what happened? The author lost all his breath. He was breathless in that struggle. My lungs ached, my head throbbed, and I was getting dizzy. So, in that struggle, his lungs were paining because all the water was getting inside. His head was throbbing with the struggle, and I was getting dizzy, means he was fainting. And then, but I remembered the strategy. I would spring from now. He remembered again, strategy means again his plan he remembered. And when he remembered the plan, so when he remembered the plan that what was his plan? You see, again he repeats that I would lie flat on the water and but I remember this would spring from the bottom. What he will do, he'll take a big jump from the bottom of the pool and above he will come on the surface of the pool just like a cork. He was planning that way, but what was happening, he was not coming on the surface of the pool like a cork because he had not the energy, he had not the skill to jump on towards the water, on the surface of the water. In that way he could not come on as a cork on the water. But what was happening? I would lie flat, and then he thought that he would lie flat on the water and then strike out with my arms. And what was happening? He would lie flat on the water, strike out with his arms, thrash with his legs. Then, of course, he thought that he would reach the edge of the pool, which was safe, he thought, but it was not getting possible for him. So It was not. Hello, channel. Summoned. Yes, dear. Channel. Summoned means gathered. All right. Summoned means you gathered the strength. Okay. So after this, I was getting dizzy. But I remembered the strategy. Again, he remembered the strategy means again he remembered the plan. So I gave you the word meanings. You please tally and see and understand the chapter properly. Then, after this, what happened? With all his plans failed, he again went down, down endlessly. And I opened my eyes, nothing but water with yellow glow. So, what was the color of water? With nothing, the water was only becoming yellow glow, dark water that one could not see through. Now see, in the when he had entered the pool, I hope you remember that when he had entered the water was white and clear. But when he was struggling in the pool, in the deeper end side of the pool, then what happened? That it was the water color of the water had become yellow. All right, it was the dark yellow water, and then sheer stark terror. After that, what happened? The sheer stark means severe terror gripped him. Seized me means gripped him. Terror that knows no understanding. That is when a person is terrified, that terror will not understand any reasoning, any logic. Only fear will come. So the same thing was happening to the author. No control, terror that no one can understand who has not experienced it. I was shrieking under the water. That is, he was shrieking, shouting, screaming in the water, but the sound was not coming out of the water. Even the scream, I was paralyzed underwater, stiff, rigid, and fear. So, what was happening? His mind, his heart, his emotions were all overpowered. What? With the terror, with the terror he was experiencing. And he was totally paralyzed underwater. And he was not able to move, scream. Only what was happening, you see? Even the screams in my throat were frozen. He was not able to scream also. No sound was ultimately coming because it was with fear, it was frozen. And only my heart and the pounding in my head said that I was still alive. So the pounding in his heart, the heartbeat and the beat in his mind, in his head, only made him feel that he was alive. Otherwise, what happened? The whole body was paralyzed. It was stiff. No sound was coming from his throat. Only his heartbeat and his throbbing in the head only notified him that he was alive. After this, the word meanings you can see. And then, in the midst of the terror, came a touch of reason. After that, what happened? And then, in the midst of that position, terrorized moment, what happened? A touch of reason came. I must, again, that reason came to, again, that planning came to him that I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. So he said that he thought that he must jump when he hits the bottom. From there, he can spring. So that he wanted that he would spring and come on the surface of the water. That is, he would take a big jump. At last, I felt the tiles under me. My toes reached out as if to grab them. I jumped with everything I had. So, again, he made a very immense force in his jumping to come up on the surface as a cork. But the jump made no difference. But his jump was useless, it made no difference. And the water was still around me. I looked for ropes, ladders, water wings. Everywhere, every side, there was water, water everywhere. I remember this line of Samuel Taylor Coleridge from the poem Ancient Mariner. He had noted this water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. So every side it was water, water everywhere. And then what happened? He looked for ropes, for ladders, but nothing he could grip. Only there was water. Stark terror took an error, even even deeper hold on me. Stark terror means severe terror took even a more hold on him, more grip on him. And my arms are like a great charge of electricity. I shook and trembled with fear, fright. He was so afraid that he was shivering with fright in the water. My arms would not move. My legs would not move. I tried to call for help. So at that moment of scarcity, what do we all remember? We remember our life giver, our mother. So he remembered his mother, but no help came to him at that moment. Nothing could be revived in him. And then, strangely, there was a light. So, after that, all the severe struggle he was having, then came a light. I was coming out of the awful yellow water. At least my eyes were. My nose was almost out too. Then I started. So for some time, he could visualize that he could see the light. His eyes were out, his nose was out. Then after that, for the third time, he again went down, down, down into the water. I sucked for air and got water. So he was so breathless that he wanted to take some air. But what did he take inside? He took water inside. And then what happened? The yellowish light was going. Then what he realized, that the yellowish light which he was facing inside the water, that was also going out. And then all effort ceased. I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp. So all his struggle, effort ceased, because all his what he realized, that all his efforts were useless, and his legs also left felt uh, felt limp, and a blackness swept, and a blackness swept around him. What happened? A blackness came all around him. And what was that? It was a blackness swept all around me, over my brain. I wiped out fear. So what happened? A blackness came all around him, and he wiped out fear. What was happening? He was actually accepting the death which was coming. He was getting unconscious. All right. He was actually getting unconscious, and it wiped out. There was no more panic. So when he was getting gradually unconscious, there was no more panic, there was no more pain. And that experience was a very nice experience for him. He thought that at last he was freed from all the struggle. So this is nice, to be drowsy, to go to sleep, no need to jump. So he thought that when he was going to sleep, he was unconscious, there was no need to jump anymore. That was very peaceful. And too tired to jump. It's nice to be carried gently, to float along in the space. Tender arms around me, tender arms like mothers. Now I must go to sleep. So he was gradually falling unconscious, and he was welcoming that, because in that unconscious level, he was not feeling any pain. He had not to struggle what he was experiencing. Very nice feeling, as if some tender arms of his mother was around him, and he welcomed that sleep. That is, he was actually accepting death very peacefully. I crossed to oblivion. Crossed to oblivion means he became unaware of everything, and the curtain of life fell. Means the curtain of life fell means he became totally unconscious. When a curtain of life falls, when there is death. In many poets, especially William Shakespeare in his poem, the the world's a stage, all the world's a stage. This poem is taken from his drama, As You Like It. In that, he has mentioned the 7 stages of man. So, in the last stage, what he mentions actually is, he says that man has to play his role in every age on the stage of this world. And the last stage, when he is acting, that is the after becoming very old, after the last stage, the curtain falls and man dies. So this is only what is meant here. The curtain of life fell. That is, he became unconscious, he fainted, and he accepted that death was very peaceful. He had no more to struggle. The next I remember, I was lying on my stomach beside the pool vomiting there. The chap that threw me in was saying, but I was only fooling. Someone said the kid nearly died, but all right now, let's carry him to the locker room. Now here, learners, follow here. That is, he was, he, this boy was actually was about to die. He imagines that everything comes to an end, but he did not die because he was rescued. Right. So he was rescued. So several hours later, now you see in the so several hours later, what happened from here? You see, several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. So after that experience, the author was weak and trembling. So in the beginning of the chapter, only I told you, this is an autobiographical essay by William Douglas. He relates his own life, real life experience. So this also gives us the message that childhood fear is very dangerous, it should overcome, or it makes inroads in the psychology of a person. And this any kind of fear a person has should be overcome, or that fear will overpower the person. So this is what is the theme of this essay. So here what happens, he became very weak and trembled. He could not eat for days. A haunting fear was in his heart, and the slightest exertion would upset him and making him me wobbly in the knees. Making me wobbly means weak in my knees and sick to my stomach, and he would feel sick. I never went back to the pool. And what happened after this experience in his life? In his later in childhood, he did not ever go back to the pool. He feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. He avoided to go to water. That is, the aquaphobia had gripped him. That is, aquaphobia is what? Hydrophobia had gripped him. A few years later, when I came to know the waters of the Cascades, Cascades is the waterfalls in Washington. So, so when he came to know the waters of the Cascade, I wanted to get into them. So he wanted to get into those waterfalls. But what? He was, he had that childhood fear, no? The hydrophobia was him. I wanted to get into them. And whenever I did, whether I was wading the Taten or Bumping River, Taten is also a lake, and Bumping River or bathing in all these places, warm lake of the Goat Rocks, the fear gripped, the terror that had seized me in the pool, that very misadventure when the bruiser boy threw him in the water when he was 10 or 11 years old. That terror seized him later on also. That would come back. It would come back. It would take possession of me completely. So, students, are you there listening? I hope my my plus class students are also there. My legs would become paralyzed and icy horror would grab my heart. So, what always happened? Always the terror used to possess him, and that icy horror, that is that cold fright, that of death, would grab his heart. And this handicap stayed in me with me as the years rolled by. Now, what is this handicap? That is the handicap was the fear of water. That was he considered him to be a handicap of his life. That fear of water, and it rolled by in canoes on main lakes, fishing for landlocked salmon, bass fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing on Deschutes, and Metellus in Oregon, fishing for salmon on the Columbia, at Bumping Lake in the Cascades, wherever, in all these places, wherever he mentioned, wherever he went, what gripped him? The haunting fear of water followed him. Why? Because of his childhood fear of water. It ruined me. Ruined me means ruined my fishing trips. It destroyed his fishing trips. That is the salmon, trout, all these are types of fishes. Deprived him of the joy of canoeing. That is, canoes, they are small boats, boating and swimming. All these thrills he could not enjoy because he was always gripped with that childhood fear of water. All the word meanings I have given learners. So I used every way I knew to overcome this. So the author wanted to overcome this by every way he knew, but he understood that it was very firm grip. So I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. So it was very firm in the grip. Finally, one October. Then, finally, what happened? 1 October, I decided to get an instructor. So, finally, to overcome that fear, the author got the help of an instructor to learn to swim. I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week. He learned swimming, an hour each day. Now, the instructor, what would he do? The instructor would put a belt around him because he was very afraid of water, and a rope attached to the belt went to a pulley. To a pulley, it would be tied to another place. Pulley that ran on and to a cable. That rope used to be carried on the pulley to the cable, and in this way he knew that he was protected, he was shielded. So he got the confidence and started learning swimming. He held on through a pulley. He held on to the end of the rope and we went back and forth. So how did he learn? He held on the back of the rope attached to the belt, all this. He held on the rope and we went back and forth across the pool. Hour after hour, he used to practice swimming. Day after day, week after week, he used to practice swimming. On each trip across the pool, a bit of panic seized me. Now, in every lesson, a little bit of panic of water seized him, but he overcame it. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope. That is, each time, what did the instructor do? He used to relax. He used to give him a little more freedom in the water so that he can get more confidence. And I went under some of the old terror returned. And what happened? The old terror of water returned, and my legs used to freeze. My legs froze. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. So it was 3 months when the tension began to slack, means to reduce. The tension started reducing. Then he taught me to put my face underwater and exhale and raise my nose up and inhale. So this is the way we learn swimming, no? To exhale and inhale. How to exhale and inhale when we are in the water to swim. I repeated it several times, the exercise hundreds of times. So you see, the determination in the author was also there, the willpower in the author was also there to overcome the fear of water. He knew that if he was always gripped with water, yes, dear, Javeria, Prajwal, Gaikwar, hello, very good. You attend the class, you will understand this. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic that seized me when my head went underwater. Next, there he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. So, of course, in swimming, learning swimming, a person has to do this. No, they are taken to the side of the pool and told to kick and then go into the water. So, weeks I did just that. So, this is all the training given by the instructor. At first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed, and finally, I could command them. So, in the beginning, his legs refused to work, but slowly, by and by, what happened? He learned and he could get command on them. He could get hold on the swimming. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer. Who built? The instructor. He is the instructor, built the swimmer in the author. And when he had perfected each piece, when every step of learning of swimming was perfected, he put them together into an integrated whole. Then the instructor made him do all the exercise, all the ways of swimming in one day. In April, he said, that is in October he started, and in April, oh my, thank you, Javeria. Harshit, hello. Paul Science, might be there is Paul Science class also. I don't know. I'm an English teacher, no? You can attend this class if you're of class 12. Okay, all right. So from October he started to learn till April. The instructor told him to swim. Now you can swim, dive off, and swim the length of the pool. Crawl, stroke. I did. Uh, the instructor was finished. That is, the work of the instructor was over. But I was not finished. But you see, the desire of learning the swimming, the willpower of overcoming the fear of water in the author was not finished. He went on practicing. And what all we know? We all know that. Hello, Ishika. Okay, okay. Tomorrow morning, dear, 8:30, I'll take the plus class. 8:30, yes. You tell the other friends also to join the plus class and to give my referral code NUPUR 10. Okay, Ishika, 8:30 tomorrow, dear. So, but I was not finished. I still wondered if I could be terror stricken when I was alone in the pool. So, the author was thinking that still, if he was to be terror stricken when he would be in the water in the pool. So, I swam the length up and down. What is it? I swam the length up and down, tiny vestiges of the old terror. Vestiges means tiny, little traces of that old fear, of the childhood fear, used to come back to him. But now I could frown and say to that terror. So, but now his confidence grew so much that he. Good evening, dear Ishika. So now the terror, he overcome the fear, and now he could tell terror that trying to scare. Whom he is telling? To terror, trying to scare me. Well, here's to you. Look, and off I'd go for another length of the pool. So he had overcome the terror of water. This went on until July. So till July he went on learning, practicing swimming. But I was still not satisfied. I was not sure that all the terror had left him. So I went, so where he went? So he went to the lake Wentforth in New Hampshire, dived off a dock. So you see his willpower. He went to the lake Wentforth in New Hampshire, and there he took the dive at Triggs Island and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. So this was his determination, which was making him go on swimming. So I swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke, backstroke, all the strokes he took. And only once did the terror return. So, in that different endeavors, different efforts he was making on different water bodies, once or twice the terror used to return. When I was in the middle of the lake, I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. Now, the old sensation. What is the old sensation? That fear of water returned in miniature. Miniature means in a very little amount, little bit. I laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror." Then again he told Terror, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" That is, he was getting confident. So he said that, "What do you think that you can do to me?" It fled and I swam on. Who fled? The terror fled from him, that it went away from him, and he went on swimming. Yet I had residual doubts. So he had little doubts. So at my first opportunity, I hurried west, went up the Taten. I told you, Taten is that lake in Washington, to Conrad Meadows, all the places near Washington, up the Conrad Creek trail, all Washington places, to Mead Glacier, all these places, and camped in the high meadow by the side of the warm lake. So he kept on consistent practice, went on relentlessly practicing to swim. The next morning, I stripped, dived the lake, and swam across to the other shore and back, just as Dog Corpin. Dog Corpin was also he was also a swimmer who made many records. So he remembered the dog Corpin and he went on in his persistent effort of swimming. And I shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. So he was so happy that he shouted with joy. And the Gilbert Peak is a mountain. So his joy, which he the shout of his joy, the Gilbert Peak, the Mountain reverberated, means echoed back. When you shout in the mountains, what happens? You go and try, learners. When you shout in the mountains, the echo comes back to you, it's reverberated. So I had conquered my fear of water. So, what was that victory? What was that shout of victory that he had conquered the fear of water? Hello, Piyush. Yeah, yeah. Ishika, you're again attending the class. You have understood, no? Okay, you'll be confident in it. Hello, hello. So, So, this was how he conquered his fear of water. The experience had a deep meaning for me. Now, that experience of learning swimming and to overcome the fear of water had a deep meaning on him, had a deep impact on him, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. So he says that deep meaning can only be understood by those people who must have had the same kind of experience, same kind of fear. And if you overcome that fear, you can also boast in the same way as the author. In death, so in death there is peace. So what was the deep meaning he understood? That what is death? Death itself is peaceful. But what we fear of death is the fear. So there is terror only in the fear of death. Where is the terror? Only in the fear of death. That how death will come. To die. But when a person is dying, that is very peaceful. As Roosevelt, he again quotes the President Roosevelt, because I hope in the beginning only I told you in the chapter that he was a friend and advisor of Franklin Roosevelt, the President of America. So, as Roosevelt when he said, all he, all we have to fear is fear itself. So, what did Roosevelt quote in this very important line? That all we should fear is fear of being afraid. So if we are only having fear, that is the fear which we should be always be afraid of. So all we have to fear is fear itself. Because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. So he had also experienced the sensation of dying. I hope you remember when he was in the swimming pool, when the bruiser boy had tossed him in the pool. He made a lot of struggle, and for three times he had again went down into the water. So he had experienced. He had experienced the sensation of dying, and then the terror also he had, the fear it can produce, the terror from this sensation of dying. The will to live somehow grew in intensity. So he had the sensation of dying, then he got back his life, he was rescued from the pool, and in that way what had come to him, the intensity, the more urge to live came in him. Last I felt released, means he became free from all the fear, all kinds of terror, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. So at last, what happened? With his determination and willpower, what happened? He could learn swimming. He could overcome the fear of water. And then, the last, he says, at last, after overcoming the fear of water, he was released, means he was free from the terror. He was free from the terror and he was free to walk and the trails, that is, the different paths, and climb the peaks, climb the mountains. No fear, no more childhood fear was gripping him. He was free, he was released from that. And to brush aside fear. So, what confidence came in the author? That he could brush aside fear. That is, he could throw away the fear from him. He could make himself free from that fear. So, this is actually, learners, I just want to remind you that this is actually his own life experience, the author's life, real life experience with his when he got the fear in his childhood, which was implanted in his head by the consistent saying of his mother about the drowning in the Kema River. Then he had experienced a time when he was in the California beach, when he was swept away in the wave. And the third was when he had faced the misadventure, which was created by the big aggressive boy, the bruiser, who was of 18 years, who had tossed him in the water. Then, in the water, what struggle he faced, that only brought childhood fear in his mind, all the other two experiences also. That childhood fear gripped him. And ultimately, when he grew up, when he saw the beautiful nature, when he saw the cascades, that is the waterfalls, he saw people enjoying the thrills of water sports, canoeing, boating, fishing. So many sports are there, so many enjoyment is there in the water. Then he thought that he would be taking the help of an instructor to learn swimming. Not only this, from October to April, he was ready. The instructor told that he can do start swimming. But what he did, he went on constantly practicing in the small lakes, bigger rivers, bigger water bodies, and ultimately he could drive away the terror from his mind. And he says that he remembers Roosevelt's words that all that we have to fear is fear itself. And ultimately, what happens that he overcomes the fear with his determination and willpower, and of course, he also feels free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and rush away the fear. I hope, learners, you have liked this story, you have understood the story. So, once again, let me brief you that if you want more explanation in details, after this, we also do, I don't have time now in this. After this, we also, the educators in the Unacademy, we do the question answers, MCQs, word meanings, expressions explained, then short questions, long questions, year wise questions we do. So, all this, when we do know, you become thoroughly, you learn the chapter thoroughly. And after that, what happens? You become very confident in that subject. And especially in English, I am always telling you that these days you all have become much more intelligent than the previous generation or the olden times. You all get above 95. And in CBSE, the course is so scientific, so wonderful, for very user friendly, no, sorry, very student friendly. And therefore, most of you get above 95%. So if you study very well under this plus courses in the Unacademy, you will have full confidence and command over the subject. And of course, once more, let me tell you, the marks of English will be always complementing your CBSE results, which will, of course, which is what? Which is the threshold of a beautiful career, a prosperous career, and of course, a beautiful life. So once more, I tell you that you can subscribe Of course, to my video, you will subscribe definitely at the Unacademy platform. And you subscribe this video, you like it, you press the bell button. And if you want to subscribe the Unacademy platform, you please give the referral code of NUPUR to get an additional discount. So learners, I hope you had a nice session. So goodbye for today. We meet in the next session. Take care.